Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Birds TV with Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan, presented by DraftKings. And it is the most wonderful time of the year for those of us who are still involved and alive in our fantasy football season. We are pursuing our championships over the next 2 weeks, and we knew we needed to bring back the guru, John Hansen from fantasypoints.com and also SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, to help us with our decision-making in these critical weeks. So the pressure's on you, John. We already have questions from viewers already lined up because they
support in these challenging times. I'm here
yes.
I'm here for the people.
You
good
are.
To see you, Jeff.
Appreciate
good to see you, Mr. C.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to try to – I know that the chemistry between you and Adam is unparalleled, so I'll just try to fit in here the best I can.
That's what I'm told. To me, it's more like biology, but who knows? I mean, probably 17 years – when you're working with someone, you do get that little connection there.
Well, maybe it's even physics. I don't know. I don't want to get
it could be physics. It could be anything. Whatever it is, it's scary. We know that.
Yes. Well, we appreciate you being on with us, John. And before we get started, we tell our listeners to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code ITB for a special offer when you sign up. That's code ITB for a special offer when you sign up only at DraftKings Sportsbook. So I want to start with this, John, because I think anybody who's played fantasy sports and probably in their younger years have been guilty of doing this. And that's kind of overthinking the playoff matchup, right? And trying to, of course, with flex plays, you try to look at matchups. But what is your cardinal rule as a fantasy sports veteran and expert for young people, especially who are maybe in their first or second playoffs, about how they should submit their lineups?
Well, I got to tell you, Jeff, if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, I may have had a little bit of a different answer, the old start your studs thing, which is certainly very prevalent and relevant. And you want to go with the guys who got you in this position. But it is a little bit of a weird year. And the trend in the NFL is a little different than it's, was previously, where, sometimes you forget the name of the back of the jersey. A lot of people, I know we're obviously talking Eagles often on this podcast. It's named after, the mascot. But, a lot of people kept starting Miles Sanders midseason because, he was Miles Sanders. Granted, he came through this past week. But I would say just try and be smart about it. Yes, you want to go with the guys who got you there, but you also want to focus on the very, very current trends and, go with the hot hand in some cases. And if a player is making a compelling argument to use them in the playoffs, then don't overthink that. For example, T.Y. Hilton was dead for 3 months, and now he's a stud. So, do not ignore that and roll with the current trends and just use common sense and, put your best foot forward. There's a lot of ways you can do it. I think everything I just outlined there kind of is a good synopsis of my overall approach.
All right. That I want to bounce something off of you, what you just said about T.Y. Hilton. I know you always look at history of matchups. In fact, if you go to fantasypoints.com, I actually did that I'm going to say Thursday morning. T.Y. Hilton is absolutely bludgeoned the Texan defense over the years. It's unbelievable. I think he's like maybe 19 points plus per game. It's incredible. History. Yeah. And as you just said, he's been looking great lately. Do you trust him this week to keep it going against a defense that they can't stop anybody? Do you actually believe that he's all the way back?
I do. I mean, he's certainly aged. I mean, he's not all the way back to where he was in 2012, but, as far as as good as he can be, I think that's what we're seeing right now. And as you and I have discussed over the airwaves on SiriusXM for a number of weeks now, I noticed that T.Y. was getting separation and they just weren't connecting, him and Phil. So, and we've seen this before with T.Y. Adam, you were kind of all over it with his chemistry or lack thereof with Andrew Luck. I also think, to a point that you mentioned, I was looking for some digits on Hilton against the Texans. I don't have it.
Oh, it's 19.2. It's unbelievable in your history.
It's unbelievable. But I think sometimes we forget that, sometimes we treat these players like robots, and they're actually human beings. And there are players who are comfortable playing certain teams. They get up for certain type of games. I mean, I always want to start a diva receiver on national TV, for example. I mean, if you go back and you look at Odell Beckham's best games of the last 3 years, I guarantee you half of them are on national TV. So absolutely. If there's a trend like that and T.Y. Hilton crushes the Texans, pretty much everything is lining up toward Ty. It's like, okay, current trends, he's hot. Injuries situation, he's pretty healthy right now. Matchup, no Bradley Roby. I mean, the planets and the stars are aligning, telling you to start T.Y. Hilton. It's kind of like the sleep like a baby situation, Adam. Not that you're going to guarantee it, but you made the right call. Start him, sleep like a baby.
Thank you.
So, John, I want to ask you about quarterbacks because outside of Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, I feel like we've seen up and down quarterback play from some of the star. Lamar Jackson, I think, has given you up and down play. Russell Wilson, before last week, had been turning the ball over. So when you're looking at trying to figure out, a lot of people, owners will have a good quarterback and a good backup that they have to decide between. If you don't have Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, who are some quarterbacks you're looking at this week and next that you think have really good matchups and fantasy potential?
Well, I'll actually just roll through my top 12 and kind of break it down that way. I think that's probably a good way because there are a lot of guys who maybe they haven't been great all year, but their body of work is good. So I've got Rodgers at 1, Josh Allen, who has been obviously really good, Mahomes, Lamar, because that's a cheat code with the running. Now, that's still pending Hollywood Brown. I'll probably downgrade a little bit if Hollywood is ruled out. But, I mean, the man ran for over 100 yards last week, so certainly that is hard to pass up. Deshaun Watson, I'm going to forget about last week's game. He didn't have Brandon Cooks. His body work, pretty darn good. Played this defense a couple of weeks ago, was fine. I do like Kyler. I've had Kyler buried in my rankings the last 3 weeks, but I do like this matchup against the Birds with all their injuries in the back end there. And Russell, I don't love. That's why I only have him at 7, but he bounced back last week. Overall, his body work has been good. A good example is Justin Herbert tonight. I have him at like 8 or 9. I think he's like tied with Taysom Hill at 8. Mm-hmm. And certainly not putting up huge numbers, but again, his body of work has been really good. He is throwing it a lot, maybe almost too much. He's not running that much. And we will see about Keenan Allen. So that's pending, Keenan Allen. But I felt good enough knowing, assuming that Keenan Allen would play to keep him in the top 10 here. Taysom Hill, again, assuming he is the guy and Breeze isn't active and potentially in the mix. Another cheat code. He's running. He's putting up the numbers. There's no reason to shy away from him. If you've been using him the last 2 weeks, it's worked. Ryan Tannehill, I'm always worried about, Derrick Henry getting 3-4 touchdowns, but Tannehill has done exactly as I thought he would do, which is exactly pick up where I left off last year. Jalen Hurts, again, the cheat code. We don't need him to do much throwing the football if you run, 10-plus times. Kirky Cousins for the Vikings, he's been pretty darn good here. Let me down a little bit last week. But, that's just a look. Then if you need to dig deeper, okay, there's a bunch of guys who have been a little up and down. Tom Brady, decent enough matchup against Atlanta, although their defense is underrated. Jared Goff should crush the Jets. Maybe he doesn't have to throw it all that much. Derek Carr right after him tonight against the Chargers. So, I mean, if you look at the rankings here, it's a potpourri of what is your body of work, what is your matchup, do you run, are you playing very well now, and things like that. Now, on the downside of things, Matt Ryan is buried. He's not playing well at all. Cam Newton, buried. So, it's kind of what have you done for me lately? Those guys in particular have not done much.
Real quick to follow up, though, because I didn't hear you mention his name, and I feel like he's been productive. At least 2 in his last 3 weeks, 3 touchdowns is Mitchell Trubisky, who goes up against a Vikings defense that is pretty suspect at corner. Are you?
I didn't want to bring him up. I didn't want you guys to laugh at me.
Look, we fell for it. We fell for it, John. His first game back after the bye, we fell for it. But what do you think of him?
Yeah. Well, Mitchell actually talked about it this week. Like, they're doing more things that he's comfortable with, and they're getting him on the run. He said it. I want to be on the run. I want to see him run more. But you got to move that pocket with Trubisky. I mean, that's what they did 2 years ago where he actually was pretty good. And, Adam's right. I did like him a lot against Detroit.
So did
I.
By
the way, I've gone through this with him with that matchup against Detroit like 2 or 3 different times where a lot of skepticism. I'm like, oh, man, he loves playing Detroit, to the point about T.Y., a guy like Trubisky. He's comfortable playing Detroit. He played well. He only had the 1 touchdown, but he's been good in 2 of the last 3. I have him at 18. I do think he's a viable starter. In fact, I would say, if you're looking at him and, maybe a Goff or even a Big Ben or a Baker Mayfield, who I don't think will have to throw much, I actually think Trubisky has more upside with a really good matchup and a lot of weapons.
John, speaking of sort of upside and what we call secondary fantasy players, Nick Atkins asked Tim Patrick or MVS. You and I have been on the Tim Patrick bandwagon for most of the season. Unfortunately, he had a hamstring injury, which shut him down a little bit. We know that Drew Lock has not been a great quarterback, but Lock is coming off of a big game. Are you a believer in Tim Patrick, or would you side to MVS, who has let's face it, a great matchup this week? I mean, where are you at with both these guys?
I think that would be, and Adam, you and I have discussed this forever. And, some people say, oh, it's a hedge. And I like to be definitive. Trust me, I'm whenever I can, I am. But that would be expectation-wise, because Tim Patrick doesn't get a lot of targets, but he's been pretty darn consistent. Seems like he scores every week. Whereas MVS, boy, you want to talk about boom or bust.
Yeah.
I actually picked him up in our league, Adam, that you and I are in a couple of weeks ago, preparing to use him against Detroit. And what did he do that week, last week? 20+. But the week before, I liked him as a player prop. I don't think he caught a damn ball. So he would be if you're looking at your opponent and you're like, wow, I really need to swing for the fences. I need a big play threat. I need maybe one or two bomb touchdowns type of thing, then you go MVS. But the safer play clearly is Tim Patrick based on the body of work here, and especially the last month or so.
John, it looks like there'll be a couple of backup quarterbacks playing, perhaps for the Giants, maybe even Washington without Alex Smith. Does that make someone like Terry McLaurin a little dicey for you and some of these other wide receivers you may have to play with backups? I mean, we talk about the 49ers guys. I know Mullins has been the backup for quite a while, but playing as a backup for quite a while. But are you kind of looking out at some of these matchups and wondering, I don't know, because of the quarterback situation?
No. I mean, for the Giants, it's a shame. Colt McCoy, boy, I mean, it's like everything's 10 yards and in, 15 yards and in. I mean, good luck, Darius Slayton, if you're looking to make a big play. They do kind of have a lot of weapons. He's not going to throw it all that much. I actually don't like Baker in the game just because I don't think he's going to have to throw all that much. Absolutely. Now, in San Fran, that's a little different because, assuming Kittle doesn't play, I mean, it's all Brandon Ayuk. It is absolutely absurd what he's doing the last 5 weeks. So in that case, it's a good thing. But, Terry McLaurin, too, is certainly back to the process that you go through making these tough lineup decisions. The body work is great, but we do still live in the here and now. And what have you done for me lately? Because, it's a viable question. And for McLaurin, the answer is not much the last couple of weeks. And Dwayne Haskins was not good last week. So there is a case of a guy that we love and, can't say anything bad about the guy at all. But I would explore alternatives. At some point, you're like, okay, he's my best option. I'm not starting trying to think of, Traquan Smith over him or Mecole Hardman. I'll just suck it up and whatever he gives me, he gives me. But I do have him down in the rankings this week, way lower than usual. Wide receiver 27, behind Nelson Aguilar. Okay, that's pretty revealing right there, although Aguilar's had a decent season.
John, you mentioned earlier about you kind of have to know in the semifinals what you're up against, and I have this situation where I've got Russell Wilson and Ryan Tannehill. Now, I looked at your rankings. I'm not a ranking slave, as you call them. As we called it on the league on FX, John and I our scene in that show was about being a ranking slave. Well, but what that really means to me is, do I use your rankings as a guide? I do, but I'm going to make my own decision. Here's the problem I have. You have them neck and neck. Now, here's what people need to know this week. When you have your rankings, right, and they're together, like you might have this quarterback at 6, this guy at 7. Do you look at it and say, okay, what do I need this week, or do I go with a guy who's just ranked higher and live with it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different variables involved. Is any of them? Do they have any injury concerns? How do the matchups compare? What is the expected game flow? How many opportunities do you think they'll get? Who are they throwing to? So when you add all that up, it's still a tough call because, with Tannehill, his matchup is better. So, okay, there you go. See, I just thought it through. His matchup is better.
Much better. Yeah.
So he would be the upside guy. I think if they both have their average game, who would you rather have? Not knowing the data, let's just say, okay, in week 15, Russell Wilson had an average game, like right there in the middle. If you took all his games and ranked them in order of fantasy pointage, he'd be right there in the middle. And so would Tannehill. Which guy are you going with there?
Well, Russell might get me 2 points in rushing, right?
That's always something else. Tannehill, I would have brought that up too, but Tannehill runs too. Not as much as Russell, but yeah, that always helps.
And Wilson's matchup is much harder. And by the way, now you're making me think of this. I got to look at what I lose per turnover.
That too. Here's a little tip for you.
Right.
I mean, it's as basic as it gets. By the way, I went for these type of decisions. I actually reserved a website that I'm thinking of building as part of Fantasy Points, just kind of as a joke for people who have literally nowhere else to go. FantasyDartboard.com. I just reserved it, so you can literally throw a dart. So anyway, we'll see about that. But now, shit, I forgot my point.
No, but it comes down to, because a lot of us are going to have some tough decisions where we look at your rankings at your website. We go, man, he's got them tight. What do I do? It just sounds like you want to break down the minutia. Know your scoring, right? Know your scoring.
Right.
Situational football, what's most likely to happen? The most likely to happen, the Titans will destroy the Lions. So you'd said this on our show Friday. Your problem with Tannehill is, he could score early, but the problem is if they get 14-0, they're taking the air out of the ball.
Oh, I remember the point now. 100%, everything you said. And you guys are DraftKings people, right? I mean,
we do it. Yeah, we do. Jeff and I do our a daily. Yeah.
Okay. Well, DraftKings is way better than the other sites with their salaries and the like. And these people know what they're doing. And I know that from their props, because every time I look at a damn prop, I'm like, oh, I like this. And I look at my number, it's like, oh my God, I'm a yard off the damn prop. So,
yes,
either we're both good or I don't know what the hell's going on there. But this is what I'll say. When you're in a situation where it's like everything is equal, like I could flip a coin at this point because they're so close. Go with the guy who has the higher salary on DraftKings.
Oh, that's different. Okay. On DraftKings, I see what you mean. Okay.
So because Russell Wilson is 7,300,
right,
and Tannehill 67. Okay, well Russell Wilson's $600 more for a reason.
Oh, right. I see. Because you think that you trust their accuracy. That's interesting. Okay.
I mean, we're talking last resort, but it's and of course also look at the game totals. The higher the total, the more pointage you can expect. But I mean, we could do this all day. I used to write an article where I literally had 50 tips for making tough lineup decisions. I mean, I didn't want to suffer paralysis by overanalysis, but I do find that just in life, when you have a tough decision, the more you think about it, the longer you take to think about it, the more time you invest to think about it, the better your chances of getting it right are.
That sounds like good advice from a good fantasy veteran there. Are there any matchups in particular that you say a player who might normally have a good week you think is going to have a great week coming up?
Well, I was there with Jonathan Taylor last week and Brandon Ayuk.
Can I just stop you for a second and thank you for the recommendation in the preseason on the DraftKings Jonathan Taylor over 700 rushing yards prop?
Mm-hmm. I tell you what, I remember that now.
I
thought that was the biggest joke ever, and I thought about it in October. I'm like, oh boy.
I know.
And then I actually thought of it this week. I'm like, we got it, nailed it.
Easy money.
It was easy money. I'm the idiot who didn't put any money down, because I literally would have put like the house on that one. But
I should have. I put something on, not the house, but that was a good one.
Yeah. I got to go back and look at. I did, I think, 30 of them. So I'd love it if I went like 20 and 10. But we'll see. Well, how about first of all, the Patriots? Can we just remove them from the equation completely? Like there are 31 teams in the NFL in Week 15, as far as I'm concerned, with Cam Newton. Absolutely brutal. Well, Terry McLaurin was a good one that you mentioned. Seattle's defense is really coming on here, so I'm not loving that. Again, the Jets. Let's remove them too. Just scrub them off the board.
Oh, and I'm going against the Ram defense. My opponent has the Rams defense. I'm like, oh my God. They
Yeah.
could get shut out.
Then the Bengals, I think they're going to get Joe Hayden back for the Steelers. They have no running game. I mean, these are pretty obvious calls here. I mean, there's some really bad teams out there. The Jaguars, good luck. They throw it to like 17 different receivers. Adams' boy, James Robinson, is looking good, though. Nothing too scary otherwise. Atlanta does scare me, though. And I don't know about Julio, but I punted on the Falcons about a month ago. I'm like, that's it. Other than Calvin Ridley, I'm out. I mean, Hayden Hurts is gone. Ryan's been terrible. Julio in and out of the lineup, not great. So, I mean, we're looking at, the Bills' offense is a good fantasy producer. The Panthers are looking good. Green Bay's a little annoying, but Rodgers gets it done with Adams, of course. Ayuk, it's all – oh, here's a sleeper, by the way, Jeff Wilson. That dude runs hard.
Yeah.
And what a good matchup against Dow. There's a guy who is not on no one's radar. Adam, would you be surprised at all? Because Mostert's got an ankle.
Yep.
Would you be surprised at all if Jeff Wilson ran for 100 with 2 touchdowns?
No, and he actually caught the ball last week, which was refreshing. Yeah, he is a violent, tough inside runner. Yeah, he's been a good good find for them.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question from our Facebook board. Andreas Norinder asks, half-point PPR. He's looking for a second flex. Antonio Brown of the Bucs, of course. Jalen Reagor playing the Cardinals. Jerry Jeudy playing on Saturday at home against Buffalo. That's not a good matchup.
Ooh.
Darnell Mooney, not a bad matchup, but the problem is against the Vikings, he might have his 3 or 4 catches, but he's not having any big games. So, that brings up a good question, not only on his question. Overall, these guys who just don't have any big games, would you play them this week?
Yeah, I mean, like Reagor is a pretty good example.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking with Dave Spadaro this morning, and he did say that obviously if there is one wide receiver to look at with Jalen Hurts, it would be Reagor. They've got some, they're working together a little bit. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy, you can't invent fantasy points. Like just because you think, Jerry Judy's really good, and this is the week he's due. It doesn't necessarily mean. Obviously it's not going to happen just because you think it will happen. Although there's been a couple of times I've willed things to happen, but that's like once a decade. Jerry Jeudy doesn't get the damn ball from Drew Lock.
Right.
So I think I'm going with Antonio Brown there. The Atlanta Falcons have given up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing slot receivers. And that's where AB has been lining up here for the most part. AJ Terrell has actually been pretty good. So, there's only one ball there, but AB did what he catch 5 balls last week. Yeah, I'm going AB.
You do have to like Hamler as a kind of a rising receiver though, because what Jeudy isn't getting, it seems that KJ Hamler is with Drew Lock.
Yeah, and Drew Lock loves throwing it to Noah Fant, who I think is going to return, and then Patrick. I'm really disappointed in Jerry Jeudy. I actually didn't like him this year for fantasy, but there was a moment mid-season I'm like, whoa, boy, I screwed this up. I should have given him more love because I do love him as a general statement. And now things have kind of leveled off to where I ended up being right on him. But I think with Jerry Jeudy and probably Hamler, I know he made 2 big plays last week. It's all nice, and we're not going to forget about it for next year. Like, I don't know if I trust them with Drew Lock. I think you're looking at Noah Fant and Tim Patrick because the body of work the last 6 weeks have shown that you can trust those two if Fant plays, but you can't trust Jeudy or Hamler. But
I find Deontay Johnson to be the most frustrating player right now in fantasy football.
Yeah, what do you do about him?
Because he's an elite receiver with his tools. He just has to catch the ball. It's just
yeah, I know. Look, they love him. They're like obsessed with throwing him the ball. Think about where he'd be if he didn't have these drop issues, because it's absolutely absurd. You look at every time they open a game, it's just like Deontay. I think he's going to be fine. Look, he came back into the game. They sat him down last week. He did everything right per Mike Tomlin. They brought him back in. He ended up catching 3-4 balls at the end of the game. I think we go right back to him because they don't run the ball. So they need to move the sticks via the forward pass, and he's always open because he's such a great separator and the quickness is elite. So he's always open. So Big Ben is going to throw him the ball. He'll get 10 targets. this week again if he doesn't drop a bunch of balls. He doesn't score a ton. He doesn't make a lot of big plays, but he's a really good player.
One more from our Facebook board. Half point PPR. Chris asks, Kareem Hunt or Dallas Goedert for flex? This is a great question because Goddard, John, as you know, has been pretty involved. And then you got Kareem Hunt, who's their third down back. So what do you think of those matchups for both players?
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, well, I guess on one hand, I'm thinking that first of all, with Kareem Hunt, like, are they going to need him in the passing game? Probably not. But they're probably just going to run the damn ball. And what they've done, I'm going Hunt there because what they've done, and the Giant D is good, but I think the Browns will handle them. They'll be in control. They'll wear them down. What they do is it's Nick Chubb. They were doing this earlier. Nick Chubb mostly, and then Kareem Hunt will come in the fourth quarter with fresh legs and just rip it up. We haven't seen that in about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, but I could see that happening this week. So I'd probably go with Kareem Hunt there.
All right, I guess that's it from the questions, Adam.
Yeah, those are good ones though.
All right, do you have any last words of advice, Mr. Hansen?
Yes.
Guru?
Not really. I don't think we're going to have a lot of weather issues this week. Hopefully not.
Right now, nope.
Don't try to be a hero. Don't base a decision off a gut feeling unless that gut feeling is arrived at via knowledge. Like I'll say, like, yeah, I think my gut feelings are probably worth more than your plumbers because no offense to plumbers, I call plumbers when I need things plumbed, but I'm spending 80 hours a week covering this damn league for fantasy football. So my gut feeling might be a little bit better than most, but just make sure everything that your process, if you will, is steeped in facts and recent history and trends and logic and reason and all that, and let the chips fall where they may. That's
the sage advice from the man that we call Guru, John Hansen. You can check his work out at fantasypoints.com, and you can listen to him on Sirius XM's Fantasy. Is it Fantasy Sports Radio or Fantasy
Correct.
Football Radio?
Yeah. Yep.
Fantasy Sports Radio. Yeah. Fantasy
Sports Radio. Yeah.
Sports Radio. Monday through Friday, correct?
Yep. Monday through Friday, all year. How about that? This is what me and Adam Kaplan can do on Sirius. It's like, let's start with one night a week for 3 hours. And then, you know what? That blew up. Let's add another night a week. And then, you know what? Let's start a whole channel and we'll do a show during the football season. And then now it goes to, you know what? Let's do a damn show on national radio about fantasy football 52 weeks a year. So, that's what happens when you're with Adam Kaplan. Women find you more attractive, coffee tastes better. Everything's just glorious.
That's the go-to line, man. The funny thing, John is such a phenomenon on that channel, Jeff. They don't say hello to me when they call in. They recite John's lines. I'm telling you, every bleeping call. It's unbelievable.
I believe it. And I've been working with Adam for quite a while now, John, working closely. And I have not yet seen those extra perks that you mentioned about being more attractive or the coffee tasting better.
No.
Right.
Yeah, because he's all serious when he's with you. With me, because he knows we are at the end of the day, and I've always understood this, talking about fake football.
Uh-huh.
So let's have a little fun with it. And you guys, you're dealing with fan bases who love the Eagles more than people in their own family. So it's very serious to them. So that's why you get the serious Adam Kaplan. I get the goofy one.
Wow, we'll have to – maybe we'll trade one day.
Yeah, there you go.
What's that?
All right. Remember to catch Inside the Birds live pregame on Sunday at 10 a.m. presented by DraftKings. It'll be me, Adam Kaplan, Trey Thomas, and Greg Cosell. And we will preview the entire Eagles-Cardinals game, which will start at 4 o'clock. But our show will begin at 10 a.m. till noon. Thanks again to John Hansen. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next edition of Inside the Birds TV.